All right, dude, and here we go.
Oh dear. Okay, that was great. Um, well, thanks everybody for joining us for another Toolkit Tuesday. I'm Dave Etkin, I'm the director of Louisville Small Business Development Center here in Louisville, Kentucky. Glad to see you guys on another Tuesday, the first Tuesday in January. Here we are. And as always, I'm welcome to my good friend and coworker, Janet. How are you, Janet?
Doing great. Doing great.
Yeah. All right. You know, today we're going to talk about what I'm calling the owner first or the founder first business plan. And there's been some reasons for this, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. Um, and it's just all kind of come together in a way. Um, so let's just kind of dive in here and we'll get set up and talk a little bit about what I've got in mind, and hopefully um, you'll get some value out of this. And we're going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to be like, hopefully, this is what I'm going to try to do. Is we're not going to just sit here and talk about classroom style. I want you guys to work with me because I'd like to work through some exercises so that you guys are beginning on the process and thinking, and I'd like you guys to maybe share a little bit about what you're thinking or what insights are coming to you in the chat as we go along. Um, so that being said, who am I trying to talk to here? Business owners who feel busy, but you don't feel like you're progressing. If you need clarity on your goals or priorities, and then if you want to design a business around your life. And I'm going to repeat this a lot, but if you really think about a business, there's basically two types of businesses when you start or you're growing a business. One is what everybody calls the lifestyle business. It's a business that, provides you income, maybe with some financial freedom. You can kind of chart your own course. It doesn't grow all that big, maybe 10 to 20 employees tops if you're really pushing it to the top. And then the other is like the scalable or like a performance business where the goal is to grow this thing as giant as possible, a giant Amazon, and then unload it and sell it, and that's the goal. And these are two different type of businesses, and these are two different owner lifestyles. And I've had the experience of doing both, and through a series of events in the last few years, I've kind of changed the way I think about things, and um, I think it's important to really look at some of these things first, as you're growing your business or when you're planning your business. I think you need to plan yourself in there first. So let's ask a question and put what you think in the chat. Um, why do you think it's important for a business owner to focus on setting personal goals before setting business goals? So think about that for a couple seconds and just stick it in the chat. Why do you think it's important to focus on your personal goals first? I know we got there. I can see it. Why do you think it's important? Put it in the chat for me. Yeah. You need to know why you want to grow the business. Exactly. Personal goals should somewhat align with business goals. Perfect answer. Tasha, you get an A. So you can define success in terms that are not just typical KPIs. Yeah, exactly, Aaron. This is so true. Um, what's important is that we have to think, be mindful of what we're building. I liken this kind of building a machine, without knowing what the machine does, or sort of like how we're building AI now. We're just building the thing because it does stuff, but we're not sure what the end goal is. It could be way more. And a personal experience of mine is a company that I had owned um, some years ago, and it grew really fast and grew really big, and it was very successful. But it it about killed me and ruined my health and my relationships and a lot of things that I didn't like. Even though on the outside you would say, Dave, you're doing great. You got a killer company. You're a big success. But I wasn't super happy personally, and I was miserable. I was tired and it just wasn't great. So I, you know, instinctively pulled back and did some different things, but I hadn't really thought of, been thinking about this a lot, but haven't really crystallized sort of a process yet. So um, what's important when you're building anything is, understand, your values and your motivations. It helps you in decision making. If you know where you're going, you're naturally more resilient. So you can weather a lot more storms and keep things, personally going forward. And then if you're aligned with your business and your personal life, with your personal values, and all that is aligned, it's a cool experience because it's not work anymore. It is a joy to do what you do. And so if you can get clarity and build things so you're aligned personally and business wise, it's a fantastic experience. So what we need to do is we need to understand what's our motivation. Why are we doing what we do? This prevents burnout and misalignment, and it gives us purposeful direction. And if we know what our direction is, it's easy for us to communicate where we're going to our team. And a team with that purposeful direction always writes their own jobs, and it's really hard to build a business that way. The other thing that I've learned through personal experience, and I'm probably a lot of you guys have as well, but if you're tired, if you're burned out, if you don't feel good, if the business is a drag on you, you hate going to work, you're stressed, you can't make good decisions. You're not a good leader. Um, you tend to paralyze. Um, you just tread water. You just go through the motions. You don't grow. It's not a good situation. Also, if you are the owner, if you're the bottleneck, if you are, everything has to go through you, you can't build a good business. So, but, people are more productive when they feel good, both physically and mentally. And if you are at your best, then your business runs well, and it's a joy to work. So, what I intend to do here is let's go through some exercises. And Janet, if you wouldn't mind putting that link in the chat for me. I've put a lot of these forms um, in like a little booklet for you with some instructions and things. You can download that, and um, you don't really need to use it right now. If you just have a piece of paper, you know, a couple of these are easy to do, and I think we just take a couple seconds and jot some of these things down, and it's amazing. Even if you're just messing around with things, you kind of get a little bit of clarity right off the bat. It's just automatic, and it's really helpful. So, we're gonna go through the classic oxygen mask, with some what's called the wheel of life exercise. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this, but we'll do this again. work on your vision. Um, do an owner audit to see how we can get you out of the operated trap. Build a feedback loop with some dashboarding, and then the last, four little tricks where you sort of integrate your life and your business together. So that being said, um, let's work through some of your personal goals here. And so what we're going to do is three things here to get some clarity on ourselves is number one, we're going to go through the wheel of life exercise. We'll do some exercise on core values, and then um, work on some fear setting stuff. And hopefully we can get some clarity on next year. And even if you've set goals already, if you're a classic New Year's Day goal setter, just a little bit of reset with some different inputs, some exercises that would often gives you some different insights that are super helpful. So if you have a piece of paper, just draw a circle. This was Wheel of Life was developed by a psychologist, and I forget his name. I should have had that handy, but like from way back in the 1960s. And I came across this from somebody else about 2 years ago and use it a lot. It has been super helpful for me personally to setting goals and priorities. So if you wouldn't mind, just draw a circle and then take that circle and put it into thirds, just like that. Hopefully everybody's following along pretty well. If you have any comments or questions, put it in the chat there. I can see that. And then we're going to further divide these three pie pieces into three, or let's label them. We're going to do the three areas of life: health, relationships, and work. And work could mean just about anything to do with your professional life, your personal finances, uh, but but that's what work means. And then we divide these into three more pie pieces. So we have a total of nine. So we're going to divide each category into three subcategories. Everybody doing okay? Somebody give me a thumbs up so I can see somebody's out there. All right. Got somebody looking. Thank you. All right, cool. All right, now let's label these. So in relationships, we have three kind of relationships that you think about. You have romantic relationships, you have friends, and you have family. In work, you have something I just call growth. I think it's like a personal feeling that you are progressing professionally in all areas, um, and then personal finances with money, and then your job, your career, your business. And then health, there's three kinds of health, I think. There's spiritual health, there's mental health, and then there's physical health. So what we do is I'm going to walk through when I just did this, and then I'm going to set up a timer for 3 minutes. And I want you to do this yourself, so kind of follow along here. But in the middle of the circle is 0. The outer rim is 10. So we want to rate how we are in these different areas um, between 1 and 10. So I'm going to start romantic. Doing pretty good there in a great relationship. Actually got married a couple years ago, and it's been fantastic, and it's been a good deal for me. Friends, this is kind of a weak area. I stay busy, and I don't make a lot of time for friends, so I rated that one down around a 5. Family, rated that high up to an 8. Now, I showed this exercise at a Toolkit Tuesday maybe about a year or two ago, and I was in this giant fight with my family, and it was just killing me, and I was rated really low, and it was a priority to me, and I've worked really hard, and so my family relationships have really turned around. I'm from a big giant Catholic family. I have 6 brothers and sisters, and 90 cousins, very close, and so there's just nothing but drama. So it's been a big change for me. Growth, about a 7, doing okay there. Money a little bit low, had kind of a big blow a couple years ago, and recovering from that. And job, career, business, doing well there. Things are really popping along. Very happy with that. Spiritual, I've been making some changes there, getting involved in some different things. Mental health, been super stressed these last 6 months. It's something I really need to work on. It's really affecting my health. So I'll rate myself a 5 there. Physical health, I'm at an 8 there. Been getting ready to start the 75 hard. If any of you guys have ever done that, try to do it once or twice a year. I'm going to start here next Monday. So look that up and join me. If you want an accountability buddy, just let me know. We can do it. But it's a good program. You don't have to be in, if even if you've never worked out before, done any exercise program, you can start this one. This is just the best thing to start to get going. So, all right. So that's me. Now I'm going to, what is the program? The program is called 75. I'll put it in the chat hard. Just Google that. All the instructions will pop up. So it's super easy, Yolanda. We can talk. We'll talk about it. I'll be your accountability buddy if you want. All right. So I am going to, hopefully, if I can do this. I cannot. All right, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Ready? And I want you to just see if you can do this. Ready? Go. 2 minutes. Yeah, this would be great if we had some music. Got about 30 seconds. And 9, 8, 7, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Hopefully everybody had a second and actually did that. So how about sharing a couple little insights that you had seen here? Just so you did that. Just anybody want to share a little bit about what you know, what they worked out? Anyone? Anyone? No one wants to share a couple of things? All right. Tasha, romantically nothing. I need to be focused. I don't know. I think the idea is being a little bit balanced. That's what I'm going for, you know. But yeah, relationships take time, you know. So, anybody else out there? It can be a distraction, yes. Yes, Tasha, it can. But it can also be a support. Yeah. Steve, that's what I got out of this, you know. Steve says, I'm glad I took the time to do this. I've not slowed down to think about these things. And yes, um, that's how I started to realize that you know, even though I thought that I was really focused on things, sometimes because I wasn't balanced and everything, I didn't have the energy to really be as focused as I wanted to be. So here's the next step, folks. You know, you see mine. You can do one or two. I always do three, one from each thing, but you can see that in my wheel, you know, I'm low on friends, money, and mental. So these will be my priorities, you know, for the next 90 days. I try to do this once a quarter. So, um, okay. Growth 9, you're killing it. Money 5, business 5, spiritual 8, good for you. Mental 8, physical 8. Cool. Romantic 6. Hopefully that'll come around for you. Friends 3, family 4. Yeah. Yeah, the antenna. That's you know, when you're working hard and sometimes you leave some relationships on by the side, but yeah. So here's my next challenge. You know, next week, what are three things that you're going to do maybe weekly for the next quarter? And so here's my three because I'm going to share first. I'm going to text one friend a week that I haven't talked to in a long time. And there's a ton of studies that show this is probably the best way to reconnect with people. And you just text somebody and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to say hi." It's amazing. And I've done this before, and not once has anybody said like, you know, quit texting me or why are you texting me? This is weird. Anything. There is always happy to hear from you. I'm going to set up an automatic deposit of some amount that I have to decide to put into my Vanguard account. Don't do that. I try to do it, but then I forget, and then there's money in the account, and then I spend it. So I'm going to do it that way. And then I'm going to set up with an appointment with a therapist to try to get some help with some stress reducing strategies um, moving forward. So take about 1 minute here and write down three things that your three priorities, and then some things you're going to do next week, and then each week for the next 90 days. Um, there are also tons of studies that show that unless you write things down and put them on paper, they generally don't happen. But once you write them down as sort of a written goal, it increases the likelihood that it will happen 40%. Look that up. So somebody tell me one thing you're going to do out of your priorities for last week, and the next week and after that. Antenna, start exercise. All right, Tasha, look up 75 hard. It's a great way to start. Yeah, I'll be your accountability buddy. Dantana, how about you? You got a couple low scores there. Anybody? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Good one. Look, schedule massage. Good for you, Linda. Excellent. All right. Good stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I mean, this is something that's it's been super helpful for me. So, you know, now that we realize that there's more to life, there's some things that we might want to layer in. And a planned date night. There you go. Okay, one night a week. Good one. That is hard. but that is a good thing to do. The next step of this part of this is, we understand you know, where some holes in our life we were with our wheel of life, and we just said, several of us, I did, I value family. It's behind, and I want to do something about that. So I have to take that boundary and spread it across all parts of my life, because in business we have values as well. If we know what those values are, we can use them to make decisions. So we'll do this pretty quickly, but the thing that the little link in the chat there, if you download that, has this in there that you can work on a little bit more. But the easiest thing to do this is to write two or three we believe statements based on some of the things we learned in our previous exercise. So if we value family in business, we deliver exceptional value and protect family dinners. So that would be a value that we would spread across our company. Um, Maybe we value people. Growth should never come at the expense of team well-being. We need to take care, our value is to take care of our people. Um, we choose fewer clients, higher fit, higher margin. Our value is to work with a certain segment, and we can't, it's not good for us to, spread out throughout. So we can translate our values and our beliefs and our statements into things that we can say no to, our priorities. And it gives us boundaries that we can live by and tell people about. So here's some things that we've, I've used and shared with some of my teams, like no meetings before 10 a.m. Another boundary is and I'll talk about this a little bit, but like a shutdown ritual, so that there's a clear distinction between work and home. At the end of the day, work just doesn't continue on until you drop into bed. Um, One protected block for strategy each week or more. You know, a non-negotiable personal priority block. I call this the golden hour. Mine is very early in the morning, and it's something I protect and do. Um, so let's, if you would, I just showed you a couple of mine, but um, just write down a couple of things that you believe as part of your values, and some of the things that you wanted to work on from your um, Wheel of Life exercise. Anybody have something that they've thought of while we were talking that they would share? If you use this exercise, and it's in that link, um, it it gives you a framework to make decisions. So if you believe that it's important for people to be home and have dinner, then we say, tells us that we say no to answering client calls or customer calls after 5 or whatever it is. And so we protect that time for our clients, our employees and ourselves. Does that make sense? Anybody got one that you've kind of thought through? I know this is kind of a quick one. Does that make sense? How about a thumbs up? So I know we got there. There we go. Hey, Yolanda. Have a check-in with team as well as family to make sure that you are on the same page and everyone is good. Wow, that's a good one. Yes. So you would say, We believe that team and family check-ins are important and we do them regularly. Therefore, we say no um, to things that intrude upon that time. And then you block the time. That's a good one. Good stuff. The other thing that I learned, and this has also been helpful for me, as especially in stressful times. I don't know about you guys, but when I am under super stress and it's just everything seems to be crashing down, um, it is hard um, to make a decision sometimes or to do anything. Um, because it's almost like being almost like procrastinating, but really you're paralyzed because of fear. Even though you may not think it's fear, it most likely um, is. And I came across this whole idea from Tim Ferriss, if you've heard of him. He kind of popularized this, and also in Stoic philosophy, if you read Ryan Holiday, he talks about this a lot. This the Stoics called it the meditatio malorum. I forget what that is, but anyway, it turns out that off most times, the stress that we feel, the fear that we feel, is actually larger than reality. The things that could happen that are bad are bigger in our minds. We build things up, but if you can pull that out and look at it, then it actually gives you a lot of relief because you see it for reality. Um, the adage is, we suffer more in our minds than we do in reality, and it's really true. And so Tim Ferriss sets it this way. He says, name the fear. If you write the fear down, you can defang it, and then you can have some clarity to decide. So um, most stuck decisions, when we have a decision to make, you know, it's fear. What is the worst? We define it. What is the worst realistic outcome? What could we do to prevent that, to reduce the odds that it actually happen? And then, even if it does happen, how would you recover? How could you repair it? And then looking at what would happen if you did nothing. Now, there's a school of thought that says that a lot of problems can go away if you do nothing, especially if they're like interpersonal problems. But um, there's always a cost. So looking at that way is important. So you can use this whole process, to make any tough decision, making that hard phone call, taking a vacation when you're not sure you can even do that. But it's I want you to think about what is one business decision or personal decision you've been avoiding because it feels risky or you're just kind of stuck in doing it. Um, so if you would just take 1 minute or so and write down what's the decision you're avoiding, one thing you're avoiding doing, one conversation you're avoiding, one business move, one personal move, you know, what is it? And then write few words. What's the worst thing that could happen if things go horribly wrong? And what are some things you could do to prevent it happening? And then what could you do to fix it if you you know if it did happen? So decision you're avoiding. Maybe I'm avoiding launching this business idea I have because I might fail and I might lose some money. What's the worst case that can happen? I can calculate how much have financially at risk. Um, People in my sphere might think I I'm a failure. Um, and what could I do to prevent it? Well, I could do a lot of research. I could get my prep in order. I could come up with some ways to maybe reduce the financial hit. What can I do to repair it? I could prep up and get a job and try to financially recover. I could um, I could you know um, I don't know. The cost of inaction is, in this instance, the feeling like, I wonder what would happen if I would have done that. The feeling of regret, of inaction. I think that would be the big one for me. So, Tasha says, I believe setting aside time for silence the mind from social media and worry, basically take no thought or waste time on things not aligned with your goals. Yeah, that is well said, Tasha. Yeah. So fear setting, is, if you're facing anything, if you're under stress, this is a great exercise to kind of clear that up and, give you some clarity as you go forward. Um, Next part of moving forward is, setting your North Star, your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal, 10 plus years. Um, so I'm sure everybody's heard of this, and there's different words for it. This is from Jim Collins, but um, Tasha says, your fear is starting my business. I will never know failure or success of it. People who need relief in their home will suffer. Caregivers will refresh. Elderly loved ones will be happier. Exactly. Yeah. Fear of starting is a big fear. Yeah. Um, I was reading that a lot of people avoid fear of starting by not starting because they spend all their time researching and not starting. So, just a little tidbit there. Um, so, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Yeah, Amanda says that is my fear. Exactly. Um, Setting your goal needs to be set with some of the things we've done about it's aligned with you personally. Um, back to a lifestyle business? Do you one that can give you freedom in both financial freedom and time freedom? Or do you want it to turn into this giant, all-encompassing thing, and have hundreds of employees and grow nationally, whatever. So, but once you have this North Star, it helps you make decisions along with your values. You can align yourself with it. It's so much easier to get there. Um, so some examples: grow from a solo consultant firm to 20 professionals. Um, Expand from one location to 10 locations. Oops, oops, and oops. Um, so these are just different goals. Um, so in this exercise, it's in your little book that I sent you. Just write out you can change these things, but break it down. What's the big thing? What's our North Star? Where are we going? What's the interim step, the 3-year milestone, and then next year, and then next year business goals, and then next year our life goals, because they have to be aligned, or should be aligned. It doesn't have to be, but if you want to have a well-rounded life, we should have these things in um, together. This next exercise, as part of this process of our business plan, is understanding and thinking about how we fit into our business. can we go from operator to owner? That is the trick. Um, so if you're an operator, you do the work, you solve the fire, the revenue depends on you um, showing up and being there and doing the thing. And I personally experienced this too. When I had another different business that depended on me because I was great at everything in that business. I could do everything better than anybody in the world. And so the customers knew to they wanted to talk to me because I was the one that could get it done and do it in a great way. But until I learned to get out of that and become the owner, where instead of me doing the work, I designed the machine. I didn't really start making money until that happened, and that was a really, really, really hard jump. Um, with a lot of failure and a lot of heartbreak. But if you can figure that out and move the needle, it's life changing. So the owner designs the machine. You have systems of people who run the work. That doesn't mean it works automatically. No, because that never works. And we here at the Small Business Development, so we get people to say, I'm going to start a restaurant and hire a manager, and I'm going to go to Florida and do nothing and collect money. And that does not happen. That never happens. You still have to manage the business. You still have to have your hands on things. You still have to be the leader. You are the key person of influence in that company, so you have to be present. But your focus is different. You're focusing more outwardly, on strategy, on the customers, on different things like that. Not doing the thing as much. You still may have to do the thing for a certain amount of time, especially in the beginning, but that's where you want to go. And even though you have to start out often in operator mode, if you know that's where the North Star is, and if you are always mindful of how you do that, then you'll get there. So, if you have an existing business, here's the vacation test. Could you leave your business unplugged for 2 weeks? That is the goal you're going for. So how do we do that? We do what I call the owner to operator audit. And well, it's easy. And what we're trying to do is buy back your time. Buy back your time from doing things. So, you know, list the top five, list all of them, but figure out what the top five critical functions that you personally perform, and how much time you spend on each. And then figure out ways to get those things done where you don't have to do them. So a great example is that I I decide to buy QuickBooks and I'm going to do my own books and save money. Um, so I could probably hire a bookkeeper for maybe $40 an hour. But if I'm selling things in my business, my time could return to the business maybe $100, $150 an hour. So in essence, by me doing my own books, um, I'm actually losing, between $70 an hour because I'm not working in my pay grade. As the owner, I need to be doing owner stuff. I can easily outsource bookkeeping and things like that, social media, um, sometimes shipping, customer service. I can outsource a lot of that stuff easily. Um, but until you can identify what you need to work on and really think through, again, putting on paper is where things become real. In your little book, you can do this, but what is it that you do? What is the amount of time do you spend doing it? And who else could own it? Could it be another person in your team? Could it be a contractor? It could be an AI or anything. So, um, anybody out there, tell me what's one thing that you spend a lot of time on doing personally and that you're afraid to let anybody else do? Who's out there? Anyone just have something that you do that you spend a fair amount of your time on? Payroll and billing. Yeah. Film and edit weddings. Yeah. Payroll and billing. Easy to outsource. Super easy. Yeah, done it. Film and edit weddings. Probably have to film those for a while, but you can I usually outsource editing. Uh, Collections, outsource that easy. The pain in the ass, I would never want to do that. Marketing in the world of social media, yeah. Something else you can outsource. So you guys just spit that out. So you know things are just grinding on you when you can be doing something better with your time that would generate more, revenue for your business. So um, again, make it real, put it on paper, figure out how much of your time you spend on that. What could you do with it? And then if you had that free time, how could you spend it to increase revenue for your business? That's the key thought process. And then the last little tidbit here is that we need to really understand what we're doing, whether it's doing well, when we make changes. And putting together a dashboard is my favorite thing to do. I just use either a Google Sheet so I can share with everybody, or an Excel sheet if I'm just going to be looking at myself. But just pick, 5 or so metrics. Whatever you measure will improve. It's a universal law. If you want to lose weight, we're in January. Uh, there's tons of studies that show you just weigh yourself every day and write it down. You will lose weight automatically. It's unbelievable. So here's some KPIs, some key performance indicators, revenue, gross margin, or forward-looking customer sales, how many leads you're getting a week, what's your pipeline worth, net promoter score, and then ops, like defects, employees turned over, number of owner hours worked. That's a good one. You should always count that. Then just put them in a spreadsheet, share it with yourself if you're still a solopreneur, or if you have a team, make sure everybody sees it and has a way that they're inputting on that. This is probably one of the most effective tools that I use and have seen others use to improve team and personal performance. There's kind of a psychological thing that when we measure things, we will affect them in a positive way. So rolling all that together as part of our planning process. And, we're still sort of on, not really put together a year plan yet. And we're not going to have time to do that today because it's kind of part of the plan here. But um, we're working on ourselves first. But in the thing, if you download it, it also has a full worksheet on how to kind of dig into your business a little bit too. And any of us here at the Small Business Development Center would be happy to work on your 2026 plan with you. Just reach out to us. We'll be sending you a link to our page where you can schedule a Zoom call with any of us. We'll be super happy to hear from you. So there's 4 pillars I call for daily excellence. The little things that will move you forward in your personal life and your business. And they are prioritizing your time, making sure you take care of yourself physically, um, setting the tone mentally, make sure you're mentally prepared, and then make sure your life aligns with what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure you have the right boundaries and stuff in place to protect yourself personally. Um, um, one way to master time, and one other thing that I'll talk about is this, figuring out what's really, really urgent. If you haven't seen it, but the whole discussion from, I think it was Jim Collins, about the rocks. Um, if you're going to fill up a jar, with sand, with boulder sand and rocks and water, I think it was water, story goes. But um, if the only way you can fit all that into one jar is if you put the big rocks in first and everything else flows around it. So it's important to schedule the most important things in your day first. Um, Brian Tracy calls it "eat that frog," and I think Mark Twain said it too. If your job is to eat a frog, eat it first thing in the morning. If your job is to eat two frogs in the morning, eat the bigger one first. So schedule the bigger things first and everything else around it. Secondly, there's the idea of putting what you have to do and scheduling time on your calendar is a best practice that is also life changing. It's called kind of time blocking. So if you have a list of things to do, your task list, and start with the big ones first, and then make an appointment with yourself on the calendar on a day at a certain time, start and stop, put it on there, and you will honestly make so much more progress doing things that way. It's time blocking. Look that up. Feeling better is, I can't tell you, you are so much more productive if you feel better both physically and mentally. Um, do this. And this, when it gets started again, 75 hard. It's holistic. It's hard, but anybody can do it. Even if you've never exercised in your life, you can start this and it makes a big difference in your life. So um, it's important to really be mindful of all that. So a simple morning routine, sharpen your mind. This is what I call my golden hour. And so I do this pretty religiously. Um, is, you know, I think it's Julia Campbell wrote in The Artist's Way about morning pages, just some sort of journaling exercise, reading, and then some sort of meditation, whatever it is. It is amazing how this sets the tone for the day. And then, when you're scheduling your day on your calendar, you know, the big rocks, when you schedule them in there, this is the little tip that I've picked up. If I'm working on something and I really need to focus in on that, some other thought will come into my mind where, oh man, I need to do this. But if you have a little notebook right next to you, called an idea notebook is what I call it, and then you just these thoughts, if they're going to take away from your focused work, just write those down. You can get to those later, later. Um, And let's see, Steve says the four pillars. Okay, sorry, man. Yeah, gotcha. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, let me go back to that for you, Steve. Um, let's go one more, and then we'll go back to that. The 5 minute shutdown ritual. You know, if you, you know, if you're like me, I can't shut it off. It just, I'm always got something going on in my mind, always something I want to do. Um, So, my ritual is, at a certain time at the end of the day, I quit, I go to the gym. And I'm not very disciplined, so I have to have accountability. And so I have a trainer, and if I'm not there on time, he sends me ugly texts and calls me names until I show up. Maybe it's not the best for everyone, but that's what I need to do to cut it off. And then once that's done, I'm in a different mode. I've one behind that. So, and then do a quick review too, so I do this while I am on my way to the gym, from the office to the gym, and I'll just do it in a voice note. But, I'll review how the day went, and I'll think about what are my top three rocks are for tomorrow. Um, and then I'll check my calendar when I get to a good point. But, those are quick things that you can do. Steve, here are the four pillars, time, body, mind, and life. Um, are that are the four pillars. Yeah. So Um, so your next steps should be is to schedule some time with yourself before the end of the year, or as soon as you can, and kind of go through all this again and start to work on, how you're going to rearrange some of the things in your life. Do your life stuff first, and then if you downloaded the workbook from the chat, and we'll send this to you again, but work through some of the exercises to take a look at your business and get that part of the business plan put together. And makes a big difference. So before we leave today, put it in the chat for me. What is one change you'll make in January that will protect both your life and business and kind of keep things aligned? What would you think? What would be one thing? Time blocking. Yeah, look that up. I mean, go to YouTube and just and search for time blocking. There is a ton of videos on how to do that, and it's really life-changing. Anybody else? Aaron, do more zoomed out checks on overall goals instead of just keep my head down and working today. Yes, it's important to be strategic. So um, that type of checks in your golden hour in the morning, if you do it that way, it is fantastic. That's the time to do that. Yeah, plan before, excellent. Journal and have daily affirmations. Way to do it. That's a great one. Also do a self-assessment, self-audit, and self-check, and do the necessary tune-up. Audacious sleep. Okay. Uh, yeah, it's so easy to do that. Steve says pick 3 goals for each day and check them at the end of the day. Exactly. Excellent. Yeah. Um, I also have, I didn't include it in the little thing I sent you. If you want, when you get the slides and stuff, just reply back and I'll send it to you. But I've got like a life audit worksheet that I put together, and I've been doing this for the last 4 years, this life audit thing. But every year over New Year's Eve, I go out of town somewhere, someplace sort of quiet and cool. I was in Bend, Oregon last week, and then, spend some time, with myself, just thinking through all this stuff and going through these exercises. It takes about 4 hours to run through this thing. But if you're interested in the life audit, you have the business audit, but the life audit, be happy to share that with you. Martisha, yes, we will send you a copy of the slides and the recording so you can watch this over and over again. And we will be putting this up on YouTube, so search for it there and subscribe to our channel if you do so. I really hope you guys got something out of this. Something that I've really been working on for the last 3 years, trying to figure all this stuff out, be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more healthy. So hope you guys can join me on that journey and look up 75 Hard. I'm telling you, it's hard, but it's very good. Tasha says, thanks it was very refreshing, makes things realistic when you consider yourself first and plan ahead instead of just jumping. Now I don't feel as bad about not starting 3 years ago. I need the tools, life experiences to help me understand the times now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thanks everybody. So again, reach out, Small Business Development Center. It's KentuckySBTC.com/Louisville. Reach out to us. We're here to help in any way we can, especially if you're launching a business. Don't do it alone. It's scary, right? We just all talked about that. So if you guys need to help, check us out. All right. I really enjoyed talking about this today, so I hope you did too. So join us next week for another Toolkit Tuesday. Janet, thanks for joining and driving the ship as always.
Sure thing. We'll see everybody next week.
Yeah. Have a good Tuesday, everyone.